We're in a series, The Soul of Money, and we have some for sale if you haven't gotten yours. I've heard several people say this book changed their lives. And Reverend Georgie said this book changed her life, and it changed my life. And it's about opening ourselves to a new way of thinking and seeing the world. And it has to do with prosperity principles that Unity teaches all the time. It isn't new to us, but this takes us to a global vision. It's not just about my personal life or the life of the ministry. It's about a global vision. And so I'm asking you to be willing. That would be a yes. That would be a yes. That would be, well, of course. Well, of course, Victoria. The willingness to get out of our little narrow minds, spread our wings, and think about others as well as ourselves. So when we started this series, we started out with the lies of insufficiency. I'm hoping you may remember a little bit of that. The first lie of insufficiency is there's not enough. That's right. Yep, that's right. There's not enough. Now, I grew up thinking I wasn't enough. I don't want to ask anyone to raise your hand, but I wonder if anyone else had that feeling, even if it wasn't said, you're not enough. I didn't quite make good enough grades. I didn't quite make the da-da-da. I didn't quite. And so I always had that feeling that I wasn't enough. And guess how long I had that feeling? Till I was at least 50. And finally, one day I went, I'm enough. This is who I am. I'm not going to be anybody else. Has anyone else faced this little dance? Oh, look at that. All right. So the first one is there's not enough. Never will be, never was. Just that's the statement. The next one is, what do you think? There's not enough. Well, we'll talk about that. But right now, we're talking about there's not enough. And that's just the way it is. That's just the way it's always been. And that's just the way it is. So how do we go beyond believing that I have more than you, or you have more than me, and there isn't a divide? The haves and the have-nots. Were you raised with that concept? The haves and the have-nots. And we either were the haves or the have-nots. In my life, I was sometimes one and sometimes another. The story kept changing. Have you had that experience? Where you had an abundance and then you didn't have an abundance. And so we really thought it was someone else's fault. It was someone else's fault. It wasn't fair. Anyone grow up with that concept? It wasn't fair. Life isn't fair. And then we tried to go around and be positive. We had this inner message in here, life isn't fair, and then we're supposed to put a smile on our face. Incongruent. Doesn't fit, does it? No. So what we're talking about today is that everyone has assets in the world. Everyone on the planet has assets. There are no haves and have-nots. We all, everyone, people living all over the world, we call it poverty. They have enough. They have enough love. They have enough family. They have a lot of wisdom that we don't have. They have a lot. And yet we have described them as being in poverty, not being equal to us, because we judge what they have. See, there's three heads going like this. That's a good start. It's a good beginning. It's not there yet, but it's a good beginning. So how do we move beyond that deep-seated, there's not enough haves and have-nots, and where do I fit in the world? The subject today is changing the dream. So changing the way I see the world, changing my viewpoint, and it's all about perception. What we perceive is what we believe. Let's say it together. What we perceive is what we believe. And our perceptions are based on our past messages that we have received over and over again. And somehow we didn't know how to press delete. We need a delete button. I have a delete button, actually. I forget to use it. So how do we move that energy field from not enough, more than enough, equal in assets? How do we change that energy field? Because it's out of balance. We either feel less than or better than. Have you walked through your life like that? I have. I'm either not good enough or I'm better. More is better. More is better. We talked about that, how many of us collect things and how many of us accumulate things. Now, I wouldn't ask. However, it does get us in a mindset that we have to hold on to things. So changing the dream is about changing the perception. There is more than enough. Do you know I know you know this, I'm just saying it out loud. There are storehouses and warehouses all over the planet filled with more clothes, more food, more water, more grain, more oil than we need right now. It's here. It is actually here, and it's in storage. And it has to do with distribution. Holding on for the highest price. Holding on to keep the market going the way they want it to go. Are you with me? All right, all right. So how do we change that? It feels so enormous, right? Just feels out of our control. How do I get in attunement with there's enough? There's enough. By changing my perception and what I believe. So as we think about the dream that is, I have a story from the Soul of Money. It's actually a prophecy or a legend. And this was, Lynn Twist was visiting, and I told you about this a couple of weeks ago, in the Amazon wilderness. And it's a place that you can't get there by plane, by boat. It's virgin territory. Millions and millions of acres and water and animals, plants that have never been seen by anyone that doesn't live in the Amazon. Absolutely beautiful. And they had called to connect with a group of people that they felt from the modern world that could come into their villages without saying they were less than, not enough, and needed to change their ways. Have you ever thought someone needed to change their ways? So she was invited she and a very small group of people, and she was actually stunned by the beauty, by the pristine, gorgeous water, the depth of these people who were so kind and loving. And they didn't speak English. There was an interpreter, so they're communicating. And they shared a legend, as I said, or a prophecy that has been shared for thousands and thousands of years in many native cultures. This is the legend of the eagle and the condor. Has anyone ever heard this? The eagle and the condor. So the legend goes that at one time, all people were the same. And at a certain point, they divided. And one became the eagle culture, the eagle way of being. And they focused on intelligence, science, and research. That's the eagle. The condors focused on intuition, caring for the natural world, and going within. Now, these two cultures have been separated, for thousands and thousands of years. And the prophecy goes that, and it goes through time, every 500 years, what's going to change? Isn't this fascinating? This is thousands and thousands of years old. It's not written down. This is a verbal story. And every 500 years, something changes. And in the year approximately what we might call 2000, the eagles and the condors started to come together. Because they realized that science, intellect, intellectual thinking, and being connected to nature, and being intuitive were all important. And if we are ever to survive, we have to work, what's the word? Starts with a T, together. We have to work together. Now, are we seeing this happening on our planet? Yes. Oh, let's try it again. Thank you. Because both things are true, aren't they? Both things are true. No. And yes. So how are we part of the yes? Now, we like to say it's their fault. Yeah, it's their fault. Whoever there is, I've never found out who those people are. It was my dad, or it was my teacher, or it was blah, blah, blah. It's their fault. Well, it isn't anybody's fault. We have to let that go. Blame and shame will get us nowhere. Blame and shame. Ooh. Anyone ever participated in the blame and shame game? Oh, yeah, I had a deck of cards for blame and shame, let me tell you. So letting go of blame and shame, new dream. Possibility thinking. This is our unity path. Possibility thinking. What could be possible? So several years ago, probably 8 or more years ago, Paul and I traveled to India with Arun Gandhi, Mahatma Gandhi's grandson. And I may have shared a little bit of this story with you before. It was an amazing time. Now, first of all, I was horrified. I could not take into my human body, mind, what I was seeing. To me, it was wrong. It was wrong. I had a judgment. It was dirty. It smelled. People were sleeping on railroad tracks. Children were going to the toilet right here. I mean, it was wrong. I had a judgment based on my what? Perception and how I'd been raised. I was wrong. And I was in such angst because I didn't know how to change my perception. Have you ever been in a situation where you thought that was wrong? And it was because it was your perception. And in our world, we really like to be right. Yeah. I knew I wasn't right. I knew that, but I couldn't shift at that moment. So I went and sat next to Arun, and I said, Arun, I can't look. I can't look. I was crying. I can't look. I can't look. And I can't not look. I have to look. We were in a bus going down the road, and it was just on both sides of the road, more people than I've ever seen in my life, millions and millions of people. And he said to me, all they want is your compassion. All they want is your compassion, not your pity. life-changing moment for me. I don't think I'd ever really understood what compassion was. To see them with the love I saw my grandchildren. To think that they were beautiful and wonderful just the way they were. And it was really not about me. And what I thought. It wasn't about me at all. So we had the opportunity, because we were with Arun and we were on this kind of trip, we went to so many places to see things that were being done to change the dream. And the one I want to share with you today is going to a woman's bank. Now in India, women were not allowed to have money or bank accounts. They couldn't get a loan. They had no power. 2 women from India, wealthy women, came to the U.S., became lawyers, and had a dream. They went back and started a woman's bank. Never heard of in India. And they got together women who had some education, but also was in that financial dynamic of what we might say is not enough. And they came together, started a board, raised money, and started a bank. When Paul and I were at the bank, there were so many women we could barely get in the bank. All the way down the street, into the lobby, hundreds, thousands of women up the stairway with their little bank book. Some of them with their husbands with them. There are over over a million women who belong to the Bank of New Delhi. Yes, all right. Now, what they did was they had some pushback because the husbands didn't want to do that. And the parents didn't want to do that. So what happened? They hired counselors to go out with the people that were starting the bank and talk to the parents and the husbands and explain how this would be good for their family. They would have income in the bank. Their wife could get a loan. Maybe they couldn't get a loan. Their wife could buy gold bracelets for their daughter's dowry, and they could even get insurance if someone got ill. Well, husbands went, well, that's a good thing. That's a good thing. Then the next step was to open bank accounts. The women couldn't sign their names. They had never written their names. So they hired women who could write and called them hand holders. I love this part. And they went out and taught the women how to sign their name. And when we were there, they had the first ATM on the corner of the block, and now there are these women banks spread all over India. Now that changed the dream. Many of the women had little in-home industries where they made clothing or they put parts together. They even got solar in their houses to heat their houses with the sun. They got heaters. I mean, it just goes, the list of the possibilities expanded. Now, if you would have started with those women, you would have said, this isn't possible. But 2 women had a dream, and then others joined them. So I'm asking you today, as you look at your world, as you look at your life, what is the possibility? What is the possibility? Now, you are a wonderful giving congregation. I know we give food to the food bank, and we 200 stuffed animals for foster children at Christmas, and continually giving tithes to community organizations. Great, great. And we could do more. Could we do more? Could we do more? So I've been thinking about this barn out here. We've been talking a lot about this barn. This barn needs a new roof. Anyone know that the barn needs a new roof? So the barn needs a new roof. Okay. So what are we going to do when the barn gets a new roof? So it's just filled with stuff. It needs to be cleaned out, first of all. It's just filled with stuff. But once we clean it out and we get a new roof, what are we going to do with the barn? Yeah, that was good. Alice shrugged her shoulders. She didn't know. What are we going to do? And I started to think, well, what could we do? Could we do art and music classes for the foster kids in the barn in the summer? Maybe we could do a kids' day out, and the foster parents that get a Friday night or a Thursday day off. Or maybe we could do a teen event, like an old-fashioned picnic. Or maybe we could work with other community organizations. What do you think? Should we just have a barn with stuff in it? I don't think so. I think that barn, now what is this ministry's asset, is what I'm saying. What is your asset? It's land. This asset is your land. You have got wonderful land. So think about it. 2 weeks ago, we had the condor and the eagle happening right here. We had a Native American elder, and we had unity. We had the condor and the eagle coming together. And Jan Michael said to us, we are all indigenous people. We all came from a land somewhere. So how do we continue to bring the condor and the eagle together? This is my question today. So take that into your quiet moment. Because in order for our world to survive, what did the legend say? We're going to have to work. There was a T word. Had an O. Together. Do we resist working together? A lot of times. Were you raised? I was. You can do it yourself. It's not true. That's a lie. We need each other. We connect with each other. We co-create with each other. We are brothers and sisters. It is a planet for all of us. Or else we will not, and that word was survive. So in your individual lives, what could you do? Could you go shopping for your neighbor who has a hard time getting out? Could you look at the smallest viewpoint? What could I do for my neighbor, for my friend, for my daughter or son that might need me? You do a couple of hours of babysitting, or could support them in one way or another. How could I be a support to this community? What could I offer in my volunteer time? What could I bring in creating a new dream? What's my dream for the barn, for the land, for so many things? And then as we move out, how do we then move with other organizations? This isn't just about being unity. What does unity mean if it's not working together, spreading our wings? I have a brief little story to tell you. So Peggy and I were having a conversation a few days ago. And we were talking about your peace festivals and the ways you have formally engaged with the big community. And at one point, Peggy said, you know, we had Tibetan monks here one time, long time ago. 3 days later, my phone rings. Guess who? Tibetan monks. Is that effortless or what? I think they're coming June 24th. I'm just saying, okay? So putting things into action, what makes movement? What makes action? It's our thoughts, our ideas, and being open. So open your mind today. We're going to wiggle around our chairs. We're going to have some time in the quiet. And Angela, thank you. It's magic. It starts playing over here. So, am I willing? Are we willing? Are you willing to let go of there's not enough? Could I step over that big hurdle? Could I step over that belief, that false belief that has kept me prisoner? Ooh. And here I am with the key to open it. There's nothing keeping me out. I have the key. The key is willingness. I open it. And I move into a new energy field. Bigger and broader and wider. Ooh. And there it is. Possibilities. For you and me, as we collaborate. I invite you to ask yourself some questions. Spirit, I'm listening. What is mine to do? How can I and we collaborate? I am willing to change my perceptions. I release anything standing in my way. Of being true to the greater good for all concerned. I am free of doubt and fear and stand in faith of a new vision, a new idea, a new dream. And in a moment of silence, we plant that dream. with great gratitude. Great gratitude for this expanded vision, this new energy. Breathing in and breathing out, feeling reconnected to the body, tapping our toes, shrugging our shoulders a little. Ooh. When you're ready, just allowing those eyes very softly, very slowly to open up. In great gratitude to all spiritual teachers and ways of love, we say, Amen.